Welcome back. It's exactly 8:56 a.m. My next guest is Tom London. And I must tell you, when I came across the video that went viral regarding his expose of the Helen Joseph Hospital, its services, and the deplorable conditions of the hospital itself, I was kind of bugged. I kept saying to myself, I know this name, I know the face, I know the voice, and I just could not place it. Now that I chatted with him a minute or two ago, the penny has dropped. He, of course, is a well known South African talk show host. He recently found himself at the center of an extraordinary story that has captured the hearts and attention of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in South Africa. And the very big question, and I'm sure all of you or most of you have seen that video, the question I asked myself and everybody's asking, and this government wants to still introduce the NHI. Tom London, good morning. Welcome to the program. I do hope you're in a better space, in a better safe place, and feeling lots better.
Good morning, Salam. It's
Welcome.
an honor to be on your show. I'm in the Santon, I'm in the Morningside Mediclinic. My friends and people I don't know donated money for me to get in here. The money's like a sand in an hourglass. I don't know how long I'm going to be here before I need to go back to Helen Joseph Casualty, but I'm getting wonderful treatments at the Morningside Mediclinic, and I'm getting better every day. I might need surgery, in which case I need to go to State. If I don't need surgery, I'm going to be able to be treated here. So please say prayers for me. That
Certainly will. We
best,
keep it
best
in our
case scenario.
prayers. Don't even bother going back to Helen Joseph. I don't think you'll last there
I will.
long. Not after your expose.
No.
Taylor, when I saw that video, and I also had an uncle at the facility a couple of months ago, possibly 2 years ago. I was horrified when we went to visit him. Couldn't believe the state of the facility. And also, of course, he was very sick and he was a bit confused. They actually chained him to the bed, and I was horrified when I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reality. What made you decide to to make that video and put it out? Did you expect it to go viral?
Did I expect it to go viral? I hoped it would go viral. I'm a
Okay.
former broadcaster and talk show host. I've spent my life in media, and I've spent the last 10 years creating content. So I had an idea that if I kicked up enough dust, it might go viral. What made me make the video was my increasing frustration. Everyone's putting the emphasis on the conditions at the hospital. The news outlets are busy playing my videos, and the parts that they are showing are the broken taps and baths and toilets and peeling paint and stuff. But that wasn't the reason I left Helen Joseph Hospital. The reason I left Helen Joseph Hospital was the doctors inside that hospital seem to think that their patients are subhuman and low life. I experienced a little bit of it, but I watched many other patients around me and many doctors be exposing themselves to these people without any kind of care, without any kind of compassion, without any kind of dignity or respect. All things you'd expect for people that take the Hippocratic Oath and whose job is to care about people. I did not see any care, human kindness coming from the doctors in the institution. Now, it's very difficult when you're lying on a mattress that you can feel the springs, you can't sleep, the food is no good, you can't have a bath, the toilets are bad, and then on top of that, you put the uncaring nature of the doctors. I believe it becomes very difficult to recuperate and do well in that environment. And that's
So
what made me
Tom,
do it. In
okay,
fact, sorry, the final straw for me was when a man died in the bed diagonally opposite me. He was terminal, he was going to die, but they left his body there for 3 or 4 hours. There were about 100 flies in the room on a normal day, like resident flies that flew around the ceiling. They didn't bug me because they didn't come near me. They stayed up top. But when this guy died, they went to his dead body. About another 200 flies came through the window and went to his dead body. And then they started coming to me. So now I've got flies on me that have just come from the dead guy that's died of a really infectious disease and problem, walking along my water cups. And it was at that point I thought, I don't want to be treated like a subhuman by the doctors, and I don't want flies crawling all over my skin coming from the dead guy opposite me.
Are you serious about that statement? Are
Absolutely,
you
100.
really serious?
Absolutely, 100% serious. The guy who in the bed diagonally opposite me was an intravenous drug user. He'd brought that condition on upon himself, unfortunately. What had happened is he contracted hepatitis and a number of other conditions, and his liver failed, and he went into liver failure. So it was obvious he wasn't going to survive. He was going to die. His name was Nicholas. And I knew that much about him. And he was practically naked in the bed in a nappy for the 7 days that I watched him. And I watched him decline and turn more yellow, and I could see this guy's going to die. And here's the interesting part of the story. At 6 o'clock in the morning, he crashed. And the same doctors who declared him terminal a few days before then spent 1.5 hours trying to revive him, which I thought was the height of, I mean, it's like bad comedy. You're the guys who stop the treatment because you can't do any more. You know the guy's terminal. And then when he crashes, you spend 1.5 hours putting needles in and give me this stat and that stat, like an ER Hollywood program. And then he dies and you leave. And then you leave the dead guy in that bed for 3 to 4 hours, right? Where the flies are flying around. And then they take him away. At that point, I thought, I'm getting out of this hospital. And I get out of the hospital and I make my way to Morningside Clinic. I was sitting here waiting for an x-ray on Saturday night. This is the evening now, after this guy died at 6 o'clock in the morning. About 6 o'clock at night, I'm sitting in the Morningside x-ray department, and my phone rings. And a lady says to me, "Hi, I'm Cecilia. I've been watching your videos all day long. I live in KZN. I have a feeling that the guy you're describing in the video, opposite you that died, is my son." I said,
Oh,
send me a picture of him so that I can see. She sent me a picture of someone that resembled this guy in the bed, but the picture was of a healthy, fat-faced guy. The guy in the bed was like a yellow scarecrow. And I didn't want to tell a woman that was trying to find her dead son that this was him, because I wasn't 100% sure. I was about 60, 70% sure. But he had tattoos on his body. And I thought, I said to her, describe the tattoos. And she described the tattoos, and I realized this was her son. So it
oh,
wasn't the hospital who told her that her son had passed away. It was me that broke the news to Cecilia that her son had passed away on Saturday night. She'd been trying to get the hospital to tell her whether he was in the hospital for 3 weeks. She did not know that her son was in that hospital and couldn't confirm that he was in there. I have a horrible feeling that he was about to end up at Hillbrow Mortuary in unclaimed bodies, and that woman was going to spend the rest of her life not knowing whether her son was alive or dead, and never know what happened to him, unless these viral videos had got out there and she made that call to me and I was able to confirm that her son had died. The hospital didn't do it. She went to claim her son's body yesterday. They made it so difficult for her that she had to take a police captain with her to get his body out of the hospital. These are the kind of stories that come out of Helen Joseph. This is about how the staff there treat people.
um, playing devil's advocate here. We've been
Yes.
hearing that obviously the hospital, the doctors and the nurses are overstretched. They have a staff shortage issue there,
Yes.
as do all state hospitals. And
Yeah.
because of that, perhaps you indicated that the doctors have very uncaring and empathetic view regarding the patients. Do you think that is part of the problem? The fact that they work long hours,
Yeah.
the conditions in which they're operating are horrendous,
I can
and
answer
out
that
of
question.
frustration, sadly, the patients are getting the rough end of the stick.
Well, there are a couple of ways to answer that question. The first is the people who are holding the hospital together are actually the nurses. They work long hours, they get paid less, and their conditions are worse. And they actually treat you better than the doctors. So there's my first problem with that line of thinking and statement. My second problem with that line of thinking and statement is I happen to date a healthcare worker, a doctor, for 2 years. This was 3 years ago. I asked her why she started out in the healthcare sector. She told me she could make more money in state than in private, and she wouldn't get sued in private. So they make it. They make.
She
That's the
wouldn't get
second.
sued in state.
No, you're protected in
Oh,
the state hospital. If you go into private practice and you do something wrong, you're going to get hit with a lawsuit. So you've got to carry very high insurance. So a lot of doctors stay in state because the money is actually better. So that's
sure.
number two. Number three, um, this guy I'm telling you about that passed away, 2 days before he passed away, 5 doctors came to his bedside to do a lumbar puncture on him. They couldn't get fluid out of his spine. They tried for half an hour. They were restraining him. He was screaming like a dying animal. And you would expect them, while this is happening, to be calming him down or something like that. Instead, these 5 doctors were talking about their 90,000 Rand overtime bonus. They were talking about their cars. They were talking about the restaurants in the area that were the good places to eat. While this guy, a dying man, was screaming like an animal, they were discussing the perks of their job. So they weren't discussing their intolerable working hours and their conditions. And then lastly, if you are overworked, and they're not underpaid, so they're not overworked and underpaid. If you are overworked, then you will make a big noise about being overworked. They're not the only people in South Africa who are being overworked. They're not the only people who are working in terrible conditions. A guy coming and picking up your rubbish every day actually works in worse conditions than a doctor and earns less and doesn't behave like a doctor does in state hospitals. I don't buy that story at all. I was watching the news channels today where psychologists were saying the mental health, it was Jackie Hoare from Groote Hospital, a psychiatrist, saying that these doctors are all battling, or 20 to 30% are battling emotionally. I call nonsense on that. I think that's an excuse. And we all know that if you take one doctor and say he needs to be removed, the others gang up and say, if you remove him, you have to remove all of us. So there's no accountability, and they're like a mafia.
Tom, I'm surprised. By the way, did you confront any of those doctors? I know you're very outspoken. Did you actually?
Yes, I did on the way out. When they asked me what the reason for leaving was, I told them you. And I explained their uncaring attitude. And I explained the way they treated people like subhuman was the number one reason I was leaving. And the 2 doctors that I said this to actually apologized to me.
Not good enough, is it?
No, it's not, because this is not about me. This is about the tens of thousands of people who go through these hospitals and get treated like this every day, who don't have the media skills I've got to create a viral video to get myself out of there and into a private hospital. Most people can't do what I do. Most people lie in the bed, scared to make a comment, scared to bring up any criticism, worried that if they say something, their treatment will get worse. People are really scared in those hospital beds that if they even open their mouths, they're going to be in trouble.
Well, Tom, I need to make a confession.
Sure.
Thank God for medical aid. I've got a very good medical aid cover. But sometimes when I go for private care, I'm not happy with the way the doctor has treated me, or if I question too much and they get a bit irritable with me, I'm a bit scared to actually confront them, because you never know what they're going to inject you with. Tongue. I think a lot of people have had that, those type of thoughts and those type of experiences, because you do have doctors out there. Some of them are absolutely amazing, but some of them are uncaring, and they kind of view you almost as an irritant. We're paying good money. We wait long hours to be seen. And they need to treat you with empathy. But, you just feel that if I say something, I might just be prescribed. And I'm making a horrendous statement here, I know. And I'm also generalizing, which is also not fair, but speaking straight from the heart. You kind of wonder, if I do make a fuss, my life is in their hands. They could snuff me out in the next minute.
Well, I can't tell you. When I made these viral videos, I wanted to get out of the place as fast as possible. They made it very difficult for me to leave. It took me 3 hours to get out of Helen Joseph Hospital after I told them I wanted to leave. I was very worried that they'd restrain me and say that I was cuckoo or something. I thought that could happen. But then people around me and people who'd seen my video started messaging me saying, Tom, please don't let them stick a needle in you. You're now a target. And I'm not a paranoid person, but I lay there and I thought, well, no one's going to stick a needle in me now. And I'm not going to let any doctor near me because I don't trust these people anymore. And I know it's like almost conspiratorial or conspiracy theory, but that level of fear that you have lying in a bed is high. I know that the spokesperson for Gauteng Health has been saying that there's a number you can call, complaints line, but that's kind of like telling a prisoner, if you don't like the conditions in the prisoner, SMS the warder. You're not going to do it, And it's a similar situation in the hospital. It's like, if you don't like the way I'm treating you, make a complaint about me and see what happens. I don't believe that is that you're not going to do it. You're not going to take that chance when you're already being treated badly.
Tom, I agree with you 101%. And I'm so pleased that you went ahead and, made this video and it's gone viral. And this is our health department who's thinking of going the NHI. God forbid. I don't know what's going to happen to the majority of South Africans seeking medical care and obviously, being hospitalized as well. I've got a whole host of messages here. Clearly, I won't be able to go through all of them. I'll share one or two of those with you. But I also want to say we can't generalize, can we? Because I seem to remember, I just can't remember the name of the doctor. He was at the Rahima Musa Mother and Child Hospital. And I think a year or two ago, he made a big noise about the conditions at that hospital. And obviously, also the head. That was the CEO of that particular hospital had no clue of how to run a hospital, probably, doesn't even know how to run her own life. And he came out in the media and he was castigated for that. I don't know what's happened to him since. I think they fired him and then, due to public pressure, rehired him. I don't know if the name comes to mind at all, but he was truly a hero. And we do know that even though you and I are talking about certain doctors at Helen Joseph, that there are many, many brilliant, caring, empathetic doctors out there, both in state and in private.
Well, two things. The Rahima Musa CEO story I'm very familiar with. I was working for OUTA, the civil activist organization at the time, and I was outside Rahima Musa protesting for the removal of that particular CEO. And while I was working for OUTA, we got that right. So I know that story, and I was one of the people who participated in the protests and the pressure to remove that CEO. That's number one. Number two. Yes, there are good doctors in our state healthcare system, but I've heard people say this is just a few doctors giving the majority a bad name. I disagree with that. I must have seen 80 doctors in the 14, 13 days that I was there. I was exposed to 80 doctors, let's say, coming past various patients, and there might have been 3 or 4 out of those 80 doctors that were decent and kind and caring. The others weren't. So I think it's the majority of doctors that are giving the minority a bad name. And I don't disagree that the majority of doctors in our private healthcare systems are treating patients with respect and human dignity. I think the majority are.
The one thing that also comes to mind, Tom, regarding the healthcare system, state hospitals, private hospitals, the care to patients as well, is the whole issue around, I raised it with you, overworked, overburdened, the state just not providing enough doctors to state institutions. Recently as well, if you, as you say, you worked for OUTA, and we do speak with them on a regular basis, on different issues. You would also be aware of the fact that the health department is not employing newly graduated doctors. Surely, if we employ them and put them into state facilities, we won't have the problem that you've been dealt with, and hundreds of thousands of other patients are subject to on a regular basis.
We will have the problem, and I'll tell you why. I suspect that the new generation of doctors are not like the old generation of doctors. The old generation of doctors, I'm 51 years old, and if I go back 40 years to when I was 10 years old, a doctor was a completely different animal. A doctor was a much more kind individual, a much more empathetic human being. Now we have a new generation of doctors that are being produced by our medical schools that are disconnected from the patients. And I'm not just saying this and pulling it out the sky. Last night, a doctor got hold of me to thank me for the fuss I was kicking up, because this issue of the new generation of doctors not being able to be nice to put it plainly, to their patients, was something that the older generation of doctors were actually discussing with each other, and it's now being discussed inside their forums and at SAMA, where the older generation of doctors are trying to figure out why the new generation of doctors aren't caring and kind towards their patients. Even doctors called me last night. Doctors called me last night to say, you're onto something here. We need to talk about it and figure out why our medical schools, and let's single out Wits Medical School in this case, are producing young doctors that aren't able to connect with patients. There's something wrong in our medical schools if the young doctors are coming out can't be compassionate and kind.
Well, as you were talking, I'm kind of wondering, is it not the fault of the consumer age that we're living in?
I don't know.
Everything. Uh, it could be that. I've heard young people talking about what a field of study should I follow, which is going to make me the most money. So I think these are the creatures we have actually created. I think the age of consumerism is consuming all of us. But I'm going to have to let you go. I hope that we can have a further discussion sometime soon.
Sure.
Love talking with you. But what I
Thank
do
you.
need to share very, very quickly with you, I can't go through all of them, but let's. Abdul Rahman has said Sebokeng Hospital in Vereniging also has 12 beds in one ward and only one operation on the patient who was shot twice in two separate legs. Kidnapping is an issue. I think what he's trying to say is, what condition must you be half dead before you get to stay in a hospital like Sebokeng? Faika Smith Carlson says that at most public hospitals, I don't see human kindness and
That's
compassion
right.
from hospital staff. Some public hospitals are the same too. That is what she's saying. Please inspect, from Faika once again. Please inspect Vanguard Hospital in Bontehevel. That, of course, is in the Cape. Right. Someone else is saying here, even private hospitals, have this situation where you have uncaring doctors. So, yeah, thank you, Tom. We need these things to be exposed. And just before I let you go, Tom, are you no longer in that relationship with the doctor? Because I suppose had you been, you
No,
wouldn't be in the
no,
situation.
no. I got out of the relationship because she lacked communication skills and empathy, and so I decided to leave. I just didn't know that a year later I'd land up in a hospital and been bombarded by it with from every other doctor that I was about to meet.
Bad
Listen,
call. Let me
this
close.
is
Let me wrap up by saying that was a bad call on your part, because had you still been in that relationship with the doctor, you would have been very well cared for, and
oh,
we
I
wouldn't
know.
have had this drama.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. But the reality is that this is a problem in South Africa. Doctors aren't treating
Absolutely.
people properly. The only way we're going to change it is if we're honest about it, and the doctors are honest about it, and we keep talking about this until
Absolutely.
a human being has the capacity to change. They go home and be nice to their wives and children. They know how to be nice. They just need to remind themselves how to be nice to patients again. And let's keep doing this so that there's change in our state healthcare, inshallah.
I mean, and of course, that comment was very tongue in cheek regarding your relationship. So, hope you're okay with that. It was lovely
Absolutely.
talking with you.
It was
Um,
lovely chatting with you too. Thank you.
I look forward to another chat with you. Let me just
Pleasure.
end off by saying all of them are saying thumbs up to you, Tom London. Thank you for exposing this scourge in our hospitals and where patients are obviously, they suffer the consequences very, very
Well,
sadly. You go into a hospital to get well. I think in some or most cases you come out being sicker than before you went in.
well, my parting words are: we are all Tom London. This is not about me and the name Tom London. We are all Tom London when we go into
Absolutely.
these state care facilities. I'm just trying to be a lone voice representing tens of thousands of people who've been treated badly every day. there's no benefit for me in any of this right now to be doing interviews and kicking up a fuss. But I know that there are people suffering, and as long as I know that there's South Africans suffering and I've got a voice, I'm going to use it.
And my really last comment from Faika Smith Carlson, she makes such a valid point. You and I can speak up for ourselves and we can be very assertive. She's saying, and I feel I actually agree with you 101%. She says, I feel especially for the elderly because they're really at the mercy of medical health professionals. Tom, I wish you a very, very speedy recovery. You
Thank
are
you.
our hero, our current hero in South Africa. God bless. Go well till the next time.
God bless
Salaam
you too.
alaikum to you.
Salam alaikum. Thank you.
It is exactly 9:22 a.m., way over our time. A reminder that this hour of news and views is brought to you with the compliments of um, rather sponsored by African Muslims Agency. African Muslims Agency, a beacon of hope to communities for over 35 years in Africa and beyond. It is exactly 9:22 a.m.